Now it's an age-old story. What goes around comes around, especially in Glasgow. And that's exactly what happened when it came to these guys. With Tam McGraw at the peak of his powers in the early to mid-90s, he operated with almost impunity from Strathclyde's finest, the licensee, and we all knew that wasn't because of the Caravel bar. In this case, his wife Margaret should have had the nickname, as her name was on it. Anyone knows Tam's licence was a licence to commit crime and never see the inside of a courtroom. To Tam's credit, he was as cunning as they come. Tam was great at convincing others to do his dirty work, and in all honesty, he was willing to pay, as he'd got very rich from his vast criminal empire and legit businesses down the years. Now, the guys who didn't take much convincing were guys like Billy McPhee. Billy was around McGraw and his wife Margaret for years in Ballarnock, where they stayed, and had a couple of ice cream vans. Billy would be on the van for protection with Margaret to make sure she was safe. As we all know, running an ice cream van in the 80s and 90s was a dangerous game, and you had to be able to handle what was coming. It was so lucrative that it became a daily battle just to keep your run, with constant intimidation, with vans being attacked by other gangsters. Anyone who was anyone ran an ice cream van, and of course, the Doyle family paid the ultimate price during the ice cream wars, losing 6 family members, a crime riddled with McGraw's name. Tam, Billy and Gordon Ross played their part in doing similar to others. The net started to close in on Tam McGraw and his gang of bullies. The likes of Paul Ferris and a list of others were allegedly on their case. Loads of stories of the bullying and intimidation down the years that Gordon Ross and Billy McPhee did while carrying out Tam's bidding, with a free pass, slashing and stabbing their way around the east end of Glasgow, was now wearing thin. Ross and McPhee also liked to drug young girls and take advantage of them. In 1996, the Caravel bar mysteriously caught fire, then was promptly bulldozed. It's alleged that McGraw's once crime headquarters was demolished in order to help cover up the tracks that Bobby Glover and Joe Hanlon were taken there to face Arthur Thompson before their murders were carried out by the Godfather himself in revenge for his son Fatboy's murder, before both bodies were placed back in Glover's car on the morning they were found some 5 years earlier. Here's a picture of McGraw carrying the casket of Joe Bananas Hanlon, the ultimate betrayal. McGraw wasn't known to like golf, but kept a 7-iron in the boot of his car for emergencies, along with wearing his bulletproof vest, of course. Him and McPhee had attacked T.C. Campbell some weeks earlier while T.C. was picking up his daughter's medicine. This time it was McGraw's turn. He'd by chance bumped into Paul Ferris and his knife-happy pal Mark Clinton. Both men weren't going to miss an opportunity, as Tam was becoming more and more reclusive because of the threats against him and his crew's lives. During the attack, Tam would receive 14 stab wounds to his arse, legs and groin area, while swinging away with the 7-iron at Ferris and Clinton. He would survive the attempt in his life, and played it down like all good hard men do. McGraw didn't cooperate with the police for a change, and says he didn't know his attackers. Ferris would end up being called back to prison on a gun running charge not long after, in 2002. Tam McGraw would lose 3 of his most trusted lieutenants all within a year. The first up was Trevor Lawson. In March 2002, Trevor was a known drug dealer from Denny and had been rounded up during the big drug smuggling ring case from Spain, along with McGraw in 1998, and he also walked free. He had a farm in Dunny-Pace, but all his money was tied up in drugs. He was a known and trusted associate of McGraw, but some would call him a tinker. In a strange case, Lawson was having a drink at the Pines pub in Denny when he got involved in a brawl. Then him and 2 other men fled the scene across the M80. Lawson was mowed down by a car, then ran over by several others. The police couldn't locate the men that Lawson had ran across the busy road with to escape the fight. They also weren't able to establish the exact circumstances of why he'd ran across the motorway that night. God only knows who or what he was running from. One thing's for sure, he was spooked, and Trevor Lawson was gone. The second to lose his life just 6 months after Trevor Lawson in September 2002 would be East End gangland enforcer Gordon Ross. He'd apparently had fallen out with McGraw over money, but Ross was violent and unpredictable. He'd fly off the handle and was known to be a bully. No doubt about it, him and Billy McPhee were 2 of the worst liberty takers in Glasgow at the time. They were pulled in regularly for questioning by police about violent incidents and murders with the backing of McGraw. Ross would meet his end after several warnings to get out of the East End. He brushed off the threats, "Nobody will be taking me out." Well, that's exactly what happened. Ross was in his local The Shelling Bar on Shettleston Road for a pint, as he'd done plenty of times before. The police issued Osmond threat to life warning was just something for him to joke about. He apparently was mouthing off in the pub, not like that was anything new, but that night when he left, his killer was laying in wait. Gordon Ross was allegedly asked for a light by his killer. When he put his hand in his pocket, he was stabbed to death and left in a pool of blood on Shettleston Road. This was another message to McGraw. As we know, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree of violence. Gordon's son Stephen Ross would become a killer. Stephen would brutally murder his friend Sean Humphrey in a Shettleston flat just a stone's throw away from where his dad was killed, not long after being released from serving an 8-year jail sentence for attempted murder. After an argument, Stephen stabbed Sean 12 times, but injured himself in the frenzy and left a trail of blood to a local park where he phoned a taxi. He was caught and charged with the murder and sentenced to 20 years in prison. Stephen also escaped from guards and went on the run during a hospital visit from HMP Adderwell, but was caught and took back to jail. Next on the hit list was Billy McPhee. Billy was McGraw's right-hand man for years from way back in the Ballarnock days. It was noted when both men attended Gordon Ross's funeral that McPhee looked like a dead man walking. He knew his time was up. Now Billy had been active. He was involved in the attack on T.C. Campbell along with McGraw, as well as being the prime suspect in the shooting of Ferris associate Cranhill Hardman James Jimber McLean. Billy was targeted first in Shettleston Juniors Social Club on November the 3rd, 2002. He'd had an earlier argument, and while he was sat with friends, a masked man walked up to him and shot him straight in the face with a flare gun. He managed to get away to his car with a few bad burns on his face. They were always targeted on the face or the groin because Billy, like Tam, always wore his Kevlar vest. Billy McPhee would eventually meet his brutal end on March 8, 2003. While he sat in a busy family pub in Bailston, somewhere he felt safe. He sat and watched the rugby and Brewers Frere Around 5 p.m, the 38-year-old McPhee was approached by a man wearing what looked like a crumpled up black bag on his head. With his face in full view in front of stunned onlookers, the killer attacked McPhee in a prolonged assault. He stabbed Billy around 20 times, aiming for the face, neck and below the waist. As quick as it all started, it was finished, and the killer turned and calmly walked out the packed bar. An ambulance was called, but McPhee was dead before he reached the hospital. Mark Clinton was charged with McPhee's murder, but the charges were sensationally thrown out on the second day of his trial due to a lack of evidence. Trevor Lawson, Gordon Ross and Billy McPhee's murders are still unsolved, and I doubt there is any rush to find the people responsible. Take your pick, the list was endless. Thanks for watching. Glasgow's Underworld.